2014, something slammed into the Earth's atmosphere at a speed so extreme that years later, US Space Command confirmed it likely came from outside our solar system. It didn't just pass by, it exploded over the Pacific Ocean, and whatever survived that impact may still be sitting a mile beneath the surface in the Pacific. Hey guys, if you're new here, this channel follows my journey developing and producing a US Navy sci-fi action movie, where I explore the real-world science, military technology, and more importantly, unexplained events that inspire the story behind it. If that kind of investigation interests you, consider subscribing, because each episode that is on this channel connects real-world discoveries to the world that I'm building and developing for this upcoming movie. Over the past several months, we followed UAP hearings in Congress, testimony from military and government officials in the intelligence community, as well as congressmen, and the growing debate around disclosure, including whether information about unidentified aerial phenomenon or extraterrestrial life is being withheld from both lawmakers and the public. But while that political conversation continues in Washington right now, a very different investigation has been unfolding far from hearings and headlines. Not in government buildings in Washington, but out in the open water of the Pacific Ocean. The interstellar object in question, detected in 2014, stood out because of its velocity and trajectory. Analysis suggested that it entered Earth's atmosphere faster than the typical meteors bound to our solar system, implying an interstellar origin. Now, interstellar objects are extremely rare. Only a handful have ever been observed, documented, passing through our cosmic neighborhood, and almost none have been studied directly, which means none of them landed on Earth where our scientists can actually grab hold of it and study them directly. Rather than speculate from a distance, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb and his Galileo Project organized an expedition to search for the physical evidence. This was not a television production or a speculative venture. It was a funded scientific mission involving atmospheric modeling, ocean current analysis, and seafloor mapping, designed to calculate where debris from the object or the impact may have landed. Assisting this effort was retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who was famous for speaking out publicly in hearings about UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and UFOs becoming a safety of flight concern within Navy operations. Using environmental data and entry modeling, the team narrowed the potential debris field and deployed a magnetic sled across the seabed, slowly sweeping through sediment thousands of meters below the surface. What they recovered was astonishing. It was tiny metallic spherules, millimeter scale spheres embedded in ocean sediment. At first glance, they appeared unremarkable, but laboratory analysis suggested unusual characteristics. According to the research team, some samples demonstrated material strength and elemental compositions not commonly associated with typical iron meteorites, and certain isotopic signatures appeared atypical compared to known solar system materials that we've seen previously. And this is where the story becomes controversial, because the fragments that were found, what these scientists and researchers are claiming is far more cautious. They're using a lot of restraint because the parent object may have originated outside our solar system, and the recovered material deserves deeper scientific analysis. They're just not sure what it is. And in science, the word unusual doesn't mean alien, it just means that the data has not yet fit and established norms or expectations or anything that we've ever seen before. Because nobody can really say what this is, where this type of material composition came from. We've never seen anything like it on our planet. So how does this connect to UAP? Well, for years, the public conversation has relied largely on sightings, radar data, and classified testimony. But this expedition represents something different, a physical recovery effort tied to an anomalous object whose interstellar velocity was independently confirmed. Whether or not it ultimately relates to UAP phenomena remains unknown, but it sure does signal a shift in approach. Because instead of waiting for disclosure from the government and officials, scientists are now attempting direct investigation themselves on finding out, are we really alone, and finding ways to prove that or disprove that. The broader shift is beginning to appear across institutions as well. Organizations such as the Sol Foundation are bringing academics, scientists, and policy experts together to examine anomalous phenomena through structured research, while scientific communities increasingly explore how these topics can be studied responsibly within existing frameworks that most people can all agree on. The conversation is gradually moving from speculation toward measurable inquiry. And that's a big change in what's happening in society compared to how it was previously in the past. And that shift really matters, because if even a small fraction of reported UAP cases involve objects demonstrating unconventional performance characteristics, physics that we can't explain, then understanding unusual materials and material composition, whether natural or otherwise, becomes scientifically relevant. Interstellar impacts are rare opportunities. Recovering fragments from one is even rarer. For the first time, the discussion may begin to move from belief and testimony toward laboratory analysis and repeatable investigation. There are already discussions of follow-up expeditions aimed at locating larger fragments within the debris field. If more substantial material is recovered, future analysis could provide clearer answers. Until then, the responsible position remains curiosity without certainty. While Congress debates oversight and whistleblower protections, and while former officials and intelligence community officials continue to describe encounters behind closed doors, particularly within SCIFs, a parallel path of inquiry is emerging, one driven not by secrecy, but by measurement. From space to sea floor, the question is no longer only whether information is being withheld, but what can be directly recovered, tested, and scientifically understood. As I continue developing and producing my upcoming movie Seal Strike 1, I keep encountering real-world investigations that feel just as compelling as the stories that we imagine, and sometimes even stranger. For decades, the UAP question has depended on classified knowledge. This investigation suggests another path forward. Not disclosure, but actual scientific recovery, material recovery, and laboratory analysis. Which is kind of strange, because usually scientists that recover materials like this don't always get the opportunity to examine it in a public space and present it in a public setting. So that's it for my UAP update for this week. Hope you guys enjoy this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.